I'm going to do a video on the Avid Juicy 5, kind of an old brake. But yeah, we're just going to do a lever disassembly and reassemble. It's pretty simple on this specific model. The only tool that you might need that's a little bit specialist is a set of circlip pliers. But a lot of the brakes need that anyway. So yeah, the first thing you're going to want to do is there's a little grub screw right here. And it's a 2.5mm, so we're just going to undo that. And there's your little grub screw, and then that allows you to push this little axle through. And you might find this axle is a bit stiff, so I found the best way is to kind of push it from one way and then to push it back the other way and try and work it back and forth. But on this one it's kind of coming off pretty easy. And then what you're left with is there's your reach adjuster mechanism there, and that's a 2mm Allen key. So we're just going to switch that over, and you're going to undo that as far as you can. You might find that your one's a bit corroded, so you really want to soak it with some sort of release agent, because if you try and undo it and it's like seized in there, you'll basically just split the end and it will just keep turning, but the actual rod itself won't turn and the reach adjuster won't turn. You would have essentially rounded it off, so you just got to be a bit careful about that. So it kind of gets to the end, it doesn't really want to turn that much. You don't want to put too much pressure on there, and that allows you to pull your lever out. And then what you're left with in there is a circlip, and there's also a little plunger as well. So we're just going to get these circlip pliers in there and remove that. And there's your little circlip. You might have to kind of move it inside, so if you just kind of hook the circlip in one of them, you can kind of turn it into a better position inside there if you can't reach it. So we're just going to have a little look. We're just going to push the piston out from the other end using a little slim Allen key. And there's your piston assembly and your little plunger as well. And that's pretty much it for this brake. And then I just recommend that you clean everything up. Maybe use a little bit of alcohol spray on there. And just try and get all the grit and dirt off, and then your brake should work better when you reassemble it. So I've done a little clean on these to the best of my ability. You just want to kind of check your pistons, make sure there's no like scratches on the side. That would show that there's kind of scratching on the inner side of the bore. And there's a few little nicks in the rubber, but there's nothing too serious on this. If you've got like a lot of corrosion going on in the rubber, then it's probably best to replace them. And sometimes they swell up and they're too fat to go in the bore as well, so then you'd have to replace them. They're only a seal, and you should be able to get them somewhere out there. Just the other thing as well, this is basically the mechanism for the reach adjustment, and it kind of goes like that. You just got to push that into there, and then your kind of lever rod will be pushed into that gap. It needs to kind of go down quite far, and that's how it will kind of look. Well, it won't look like that, but that's how it's going to work in your system. And then when you press your brake, it's going to push on the piston, then the piston spring is going to push that back. So yeah, that's probably the most complicated part of this lever. Nice and simple. So yeah, we're just going to get back to reassembling it. On a lot of stuff like this where it's plastic to plastic, I'm going to use like a silicone grease just to lube it up a bit really. It's quite old, all this stuff, so just want to try and make it feel as good as I can. So yeah, first things first, we want to put your piston and your spring back together. I'm going to put all this over out of the way. And once again, I'm going to use a bit of silicone grease on the rubber seals. The silicone stuff's basically meant for kind of plastics and rubber where it meets metal. Just going to grab that, pop that into there. That can stay there for now. I'm going to take our two plastic pieces And I'm just going to put a bit of lube on the inside. It doesn't matter how you align, there's two little lines going through there. It doesn't really matter how you align them because the reach adjuster will turn that anyway. So yeah, don't worry about that. And that's basically going to go that way into the brake, like so. So I'm just going to place it in there a little bit and then you can see that's how it sits. You might need to kind of clean up these edges, just so you can push that in there. I'll put a bit of lube on the side, just so it slides in nicely. And also there's little, in here there's little plastic bushings, and sometimes they can get caught on them, so you might have to take those out. You just got to find an Allen key or a prodder and just kind of tap them and they should pop out. Hopefully we won't have to do that, but might just have to line things up a bit better. There we go. Push that in with something. I'm going to use the lever, might as well. There we go. That sits in there. Then you're going to take your little circlip. It's really important that you kind of clean these circlips up, especially if they're made of steel and they start to rust, because it will make it more difficult to get it back in the little slot that's in there. So yeah, sometimes I'll put a bit of sandpaper down and I'll flatten them off, just sand them down a little bit, get rid of some of the grit and the grime on them, just to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to reassembling. I'm just gonna drop that. There we go. I don't think the orientation really matters with the circlip, as long as it's in the little groove. Let me turn that around so it might be a bit easier to see on the camera. And then you're just going to push down as hard as you can and release that circlip. And hopefully that's in a good position. If you want, you can get like a little prodder or a flat end and just click it into place. And just look at it and make sure that it looks alright. There we go. I'm happy with that. So basically just use the flat end just to push it in the little groove. You can hear a little click when you do it. Next thing is you're just going to take your lever and put your reach adjuster back on. So the lever is going to be that way, so we need it to go in this way. And what I would do is just leave it so it's just starting to protrude out at that point. So it's on the highest reach adjustment setting. So now grab your lever. Just remember what way round your lever goes, don't try and put it on the wrong way. So that's going to go into, that's not going to work, is it? So it's got to be that way. And you've just got to line those screws up with the end of that as well. It's a little bit fiddly, especially if you keep doing what I do and putting the lever on the wrong way. But yeah, you want that reach adjuster to go down into the plunger, into that plastic thing. It's got to sit quite low at the bottom. There we go. I'm just going to take our bar, put a bit of grease on this if you wanted to. Probably a Teflon grease would be a bit better for that, but line up the hole. Maybe a little prodder. And it's nice and lined up. And then all we got to do now is put the little grub screw back in. We've got a little 2.5 over here. Yeah, it doesn't like that one, it's a 3mm. There we go, 2.5. A little bit fiddly, I guess. Weird angle they go in at. Kind of that angle. Try and use a ball end, but these kind of slip a little bit. Not really a fan of the ball ends. There we go, just knit that up. You should have nice kind of lever feel. And the other thing is just check your reach adjuster works as well. Make sure the Allen key is properly in that slot. And there you go, there's your reach adjustment changing. And that's it really, very simple kind of brake to do. Much easier than the newer stuff anyway. So yeah, Avid SRAM Juicy 5.